There are burdens we carry that do not belong to us, weights we inherit from moments we cannot undo, and responsibilities we assume for choices we did not make. And yet, we hold them tightly, as if letting go would make us somehow lesser. Guilt, even when misplaced, becomes an anchor, rooting us to moments that are not ours to own. Why do we feel guilty for things that aren't our fault? Perhaps it is because guilt, at its core, is not just an emotion, but a mirror reflecting the intricate web of our connection to others. It begins with a man named Daniel sitting alone in his dimly lit apartment. The room is silent, except for the rhythmic ticking of an old clock. Daniel has always been a careful man, a kind friend, a responsible son, and someone who meticulously avoids conflict. But tonight, he feels the crushing weight of guilt pressing against his chest. 2 days ago, his childhood friend, Mark, had confided in him about a life-altering decision he was about to make. Mark had been struggling for months, consumed by pressures Daniel hadn't fully understood. That evening, Daniel listened, offered words of comfort, and promised to be there no matter what. But now, Mark was gone. He had taken his own life, leaving Daniel with an unanswered phone call and an overwhelming sense that he had failed. Even though Daniel had done nothing wrong, he had listened, he had cared, he had been present, he couldn't shake the guilt. What if he had said something different? What if he had pushed harder to intervene? What if, somehow, he could have prevented it? These questions looped endlessly in his mind, building a narrative of responsibility that wasn't his to bear. As Daniel stared at the clock, guilt gnawed at his spirit, and a quiet but persistent thought echoed, "If I had done more, maybe he would still be here." Why do we do this? Why do we claim responsibility for events outside our control? Guilt, in its essence, is a deeply social emotion. It is born from our connection to others and the unwritten rules of human interaction. We feel guilt when we perceive that we have violated a moral code, hurt someone, or failed in our duty to protect. But the human mind is not perfect at distinguishing between responsibility and proximity. We often mistake our presence in a situation as evidence of causality. If we were there, or if we could have acted differently, we assume we should have. It's as though guilt becomes a reflex, a way of affirming to ourselves that we care, that we are good people, and that we would not wish harm upon anyone. But misplaced guilt is like reaching out to hold a shadow. It is a weightless illusion, and yet it feels impossibly heavy. Consider the paradox of guilt for things beyond our control. It comes from a place of compassion, yet it corrodes the very compassion it seeks to affirm. We feel guilty because we care, but in doing so, we punish ourselves for caring too much. And then there's the broader truth. Guilt is not only a mirror of compassion, but also a reflection of our desire for control. To feel guilty is, in some ways, to resist the chaos of life. It is to believe that if we had done something differently, we could have rewritten the story. But life does not grant us such power. Mark's death was not Daniel's fault. It was the result of 1,000 complexities, choices, and moments that no single person could have altered. But Daniel's guilt was a testament to his love. It was his mind's way of clinging to the idea that he could have saved his friend, even though the truth was far more painful. He couldn't. Perhaps the question is not why do we feel guilty for things that aren't our fault, but what do we do with that guilt once it arises? We can let it define us, hold us in its grasp, and convince us that we are responsible for every tragedy we encounter. Or we can see it for what it is, a reflection of our deepest care for others, a symbol of our humanity, and a reminder of the fragile, beautiful, and interconnected web of life. In the end, guilt is not an answer. It is a question, a quiet, unrelenting whisper asking us, what does it mean to be human? And what does it mean to love in a world where so much lies beyond our control?